All our meeting to order, our first quarterly meeting, and I will ask Secretary Regent West to do a roll call.
Chair Bale,
Present.
Regent Ball, Regent Brinkley,
Present.
Regent Brody,
Present.
Regent Dennison, present. Vice Chair Milliken,
Present.
Regent Nichols,
Present.
Regent Spiller,
Present.
Regent Thomas, here. Regent Last here, and Regent Borgdon.
Present.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we have 10 regents present representing the quorum of the board.
Right, thank you very much. And we have recently received the minutes from our fourth quarterly meeting for our review. I'll entertain a motion for approval of those.
So
Regent Thomas,
second.
second. Regent West. Any discussion or corrections, deletions from those minutes? If not, all those in favor for approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Minutes are approved. Before we get into the committee meetings, many of you are aware, apparently our former First Lady, Harriet Downing, passed away this morning. And she was the epitome, I think, of a First Lady and maintained her connections with Western long after that role had ended, and quite a lady, a good friend to many of us. So recognize her. It seems fitting that we're meeting at Research Innovation Center with the winds of change literally blowing outside, but blowing inside the higher education world. I think innovation and research and rethinking maybe how we do business is going to remain the order of the day, so to speak. So would like to thank Buddy Steen, if he's in here, for hosting us here today in this unique facility that we'll have a chance to tour later on. But a lot of interesting, good things going on in this facility. So, all right, with that, we'll go to Academic Affairs Committee.
Very good. Our first action item under our academic affairs business is the approval for academic program suspension for strategic sports communication graduate certificate. Provost Fisher.
Yeah, thank you. This has been put forward by the faculty, the suspension, and has been approved by the program coordinator, department chair, the dean, and the provost. And of course, we will teach it out like we always do with any program that's suspended. And with that,
Do we have any discussion? Then we'll entertain a motion to approve to suspend the strategic sport communication graduate certificate with implementation in the spring of 2023. Do I have such a motion?
So made.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Our second item of business is the approval of sabbatical leaves for the faculty that are listed at page 2 of your program for today. Again, Provost.
thank you. So sabbatical leave will be for 23-24. To be eligible for sabbatical leave, you have to have at least 6 contiguous full academic years, hold the rank of assistant professor, and have submitted an sabbatical application that's been approved by your area and then sent to the provost office. In addition, I'd like to make one change to the people that have asked for it. Dr. Gordon Bayless has withdrawn. He is going to do it next year. His plans fell through and he will resubmit next year. And with that, we have 11 sabbaticals from 3 of the 5 colleges.
Do we have any discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion for the approval of faculty sabbatical leaves for those individuals, those recommended individuals for the terms indicated. Do I have such a motion?
So
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. I want to go now to action item number 4. That is the approval of faculty emeritus status for Dr. Sam Evans and Dr. John Moore and Mr. Rico Tyler. Do we have any discussion in that regard?
We do. We are lucky enough to have all 3 of them in the room today. And we would love to give each one a chance to tell you about their career here at WKU. So we will start with Dr. Sam Evans, who is Dean of the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences.
Thank you. Probably project my voice, but it won't pick up on it. Thank you, Dr. Fisher. My career at WKU really started in 1990. I got baptized by fire, so to speak. Within 5 months, they decided I would be the person who would direct the preparation of the portfolios for all the education programs across campus for our national accreditation. That was not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. The quality of the faculty, the work they did make a difference for me. And it was probably my initial work relative to my career here at WKU. The piece that truly made a difference was our leadership in a program that developed the Renaissance Teacher Work Sample. 10 institutions, ultimately 11 across 9 states is not an easy task when you think about it. But we were very successful. It was adopted by other institutions across the United States, designed for accountability purposes in terms of teacher candidates' impact on student learning or student performance. And to my knowledge, it is still being used on campus and is making a difference. I had an opportunity to engage in a lot of things, state, national, internationally. And I would say the work that I did was possible because of the faculty. If it weren't for a good group of faculty doing exceptional work, I wouldn't have gotten there, bottom line. Also, the staff that we had in the college, staff across the university campus were extremely helpful. And I can't forget the students. If you don't have a good group of students, you're not going anywhere. And they did make a difference. So the bottom line is, I do want to thank you as the Board of Regents. I want to thank the faculty, the staff, and the students. They did enable me to do what I did. And the late Joe and Jimmy always told me, said, Sam, leaders are not stars, leaders produce stars. And I thought that was so true in the work that I did. So thank you very much.
The
It
second
may be
person,
worth noting, Sam's wife, Mary, is here with him, and he's got to have a spouse emeriti too, right? Yeah, really. And Sam told me before the meeting, he's still writing, producing some work. And so emeriti does not mean retired. Good.
second person is Dr. John Moore, who was Professor of Teacher Education.
Thank you for the honor and recognition. My 30 years at Western consisted of experiences with students and colleagues that were most enjoyable and rewarding. The highlight of my career was serving as department head of middle grades and secondary education, and in leadership areas. In my academic area, I served as president of Kentucky Council for the Social Studies for 3 years. And then I went on to serve as president of National Council for the Social Studies. that consists today of 23,000 social studies teachers. I recently published a book called Teaching the Struggle for Civil Rights. So you're right, I'm still writing. It just came out in May of 22nd. And this book focuses on issues in social studies and civil rights as it relates to 1977 to the present. So these are modern day issues as it relates to civil rights throughout our nation. And the book is mainly curriculum design for middle school and high school social studies teachers. If I could be of service to the university in the future or any assistance, please let me know. Go Tops.
And the last is Mr. Rico Tyler.
Good morning. Before I say anything else, I need to mention that I'm only here because the other two members that are being voted in today were my dean and my first department head. They were my mentors that made everything else possible that I did while I was here at Western. Although I do need to say that I was actually on this campus before either of them. My first encounter with Western was in the fall of 1970 when a 10-year-old Rico was brought up here by Dr. Vabakevich, a member of the Department of Physics and Astronomy, to show me that the observatory and the planetarium, the new observatory and the new planetarium. And later in 2001, when I came here full time, that's where I worked. I was here to teach for the school, for the Department of Curriculum Instruction, and to teach for the Department of Physics and Astronomy. And from there, I got a chance to be one of the founding teachers of SkyTeach, and just love what I do. The only real worry I have is this doesn't mean that I lose my key to my office. I would really be upset with that because I'm not finished working yet.
Thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for being here today.
With that being said, I would now entertain a motion for approval of emeritus status for these three individuals who are so prominent on our campus.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now, I would like to take up action item number 3. And this is a request for the approval of University Distinguished Professor appointment for Dr. Thomas Keith Phillips, Professor of Biology, to be effective on July the 1st, 2023. Mr. Provost.
Yes, I would just like to mention a few things about an incredible career that's happened on this campus. He's highly respected internationally for both teaching and research. He teaches intro to biology, insect diversity, insect evolution, lots of other courses, as well as study abroad courses. His research focuses on insect diversity, which you will get a chance to see today, especially in Coleoptera. And for people like me, I know what that is, but most people in the world don't. But it's beetles, so all types of beetles, including spider beetles, dung beetles, cave beetles, those types. I think the real positive about his research is it's done with graduate and undergraduate students. It's about what we're about, which is to give people hands-on opportunities to learn. And that's really what he does incredibly well. In addition, he's a prolific writer. I mean, if you look at his career, it's 92 peer-reviewed publications, 78 since he came to WKU, and 40 since he became full professor, which is just amazing. And in addition to that, he's mentored 15 master's students, and he's published 249 DNA sequences in GeneBank. So he has been busy. There's no doubt about it. But I had a conversation with him the other day when we were looking at his beetle collection, which there's two nerds looking at a beetle collection as we were. And you could tell the passion, you could tell the excitement. It was amazing. And he had students with him and they were just as excited. So it was excellent. So I would highly, highly recommend that him as the University Distinguished Professor.
I will then entertain a motion for the approval of Dr. T. Keith Phillips as Distinguished Professor effective July 1st, 2023. Do I have such a motion? Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. E.T. Phillips for an information item and a presentation. Dr. Phillips. There's a change.
And yeah, thank you for your kind introduction and the comments. I first off just want to thank everybody involved in this process of me becoming a university distinguished professor. There's a lot of people that helped me attain this honor. I truly appreciate it. I'm very grateful for it. I'd just like to make a note of thanks to my parents. My mother will be 94 this May. My wife Linda, who's always been very supportive and tolerant, I might say, as well as all the students and colleagues and friends that I've worked with over the years that, helped make my career. So, and yeah, I'm going to try to stay on script, because if I don't stay on script, I think I will take too long. I know I've only got a short little bit to talk about. And my script seems to be gone, so I guess I'll have to. But anyhow, insects. I mean, I just want to start out by saying I started collecting insects when I was 6 years old. It was all my father's fault. When I was he saw me looking at bugs and he said, "Keith, why don't you start an insect collection?" And from that point on, I really started my study of insects, and I've never lost my enthusiasm. I have to say, it's really nice to do my hobby and get paid for it. So thank you very much to Western Kentucky University. Next slide here. So I think the one thing about, studying insects for me is really what I'm trying to do is involve students in research and get them excited about insect biodiversity and truly the conservation of insects as well. I mean, there's a lot of habitats that we're continually losing. And I think, when you think about insect conservation, which is really what is the thrust of my research, is to try to identify habitats, unique habitats, endangered habitats that, okay, so once we know what's there, then we can conserve. And if we don't know what's there, we really can't conserve. So I mean, that's really the goal, to try to get students and continue the legacy of students. So if you think about beetle diversity, I mean, I study, as Bud said, I study three relatively small groups of beetles: spider beetles, dung beetles, and cave beetles. Now, if you think about the number of beetle species described, over 400,000 species, there are estimated to be over 1 million species of beetles on Earth. I suspect that estimate is far too low, as I think I'll show you in the future. Now, as far as my field work, it's taken me to a lot of interesting places. The most recent trip was in the Atacama Desert. That's a small part of the western coast of South America. A couple of students there, the one in the top right is a former student, and the one on the bottom left, actually, that's in northern Chile, where we're doing work. I mean, you can see not too much vegetation, a little bit of vegetation on the top right, and that's where we can find some of our spider beetles. Caves in Kentucky, I've spent a lot of time on my hands and knees crawling in caves, looking for small little tiny blind beetles with only our headlamps to show the way. I mean, a lot of students in these pictures. Some other field work: northern Chile, New Mexico, Richter spells, South Africa, Cameroon. I mean, I think, my research has taken me to a lot of different places and always with students. Some other places we've been to: Guinea, West African places, Guinea, Liberia, Ghana. I have to say the Nimba Range in Guinea, southeastern Guinea, is maybe one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in the world. And as far as conservation, I mean, my work's involved in a lot of trying to identify places, trying to look at places that are highly threatened by habitat destruction, bushmeat hunting, climate change. And here's an example of, okay, a couple of groups of beetles I've worked on with students. Actually, the one on the right side was a project with an undergrad student where we described 11 new species of one genus of spider beetles in South Africa. But if you look at the distributions, we're just trying to look at where species occur and look at high species richness, and maybe those places aren't protected, and so we can go ahead and conserve them, protect them, identify them, and protect them. Now, as far as spider beetles, okay, it's a really diverse group of insects, I think, because a lot of shapes and structures. You can see those four species. They're not often collected. They're quite obscure. They've got a lot of bizarre lifestyles, like living with ants, bellicose ants called myrmecophily, leaf and seed miners, and a lot of species that feed on detritus. Some are stored product pests as well. These four species, they're all four new species. They represent four new genera we described. I mean, the diversity is just so poorly known. So why do they call them spider beetles? Well, when they move, they tap their antennae on the front of the ground in front of them. So it looks like a fourth pair of legs. And then the head is sort of tucked underneath the middle part of the body. And so it looks like two body regions, just like spiders. Quite cute, aren't they? Now, one of the big projects I started in 2003 working on in West Africa, Ghana, specifically the Ghana insect project, and that was funded in part by National Science Foundation money. I've gotten close to $500,000 from the National Science Foundation to do work in West Africa. But the Ghana and the larger region, I don't know if there's a, no, well, okay, you can see West Africa, Upper Guinean forests. These places, this picture in Conservation International represents biodiversity hotspots, places that are highly threatened, but highly species rich. And Upper Guinean forest, it was a place poorly studied. And it was a great place, it continues to be a great place to work. I mean, the project, it's ongoing. Seems it will never end. Back to US. I mean, we tend to think, at least I did as a kid, all the insects are known in Canada and the United States. Okay, so here's an example of a student, Robert Chambliss. I did a couple of weeks field work with him. He continued on for 3 months collecting specimens in Western North America. And so here's a species or genus that was known from three species. And so based on his collections and then, phylogenetic analysis and molecular data, the hypothesis now is there's 12 species from 3. This is in the Western US. If the fauna is this poorly known in the Western US, and this reflects a lot of different insects that are in the US. As well, if you look, this is just one of these clades that, okay, it was originally thought to be 1 species, it's actually 8. And then sort of all the colored patches are localities for these different species, and then the percentages are just the genetic divergence between them. A lot of these species, by the way, are morphologically distinct. Some are not. Some are just distinct molecularly, but those are what we call cryptic or hidden species, and there's a lot of them out there. Now, here's a genus from Peru that we described, Cordialytrum, 5 new species. Okay, so this is in the Atacama Desert. We've surveyed about 1/3 of the Atacama. We've got another 2/3. It seems like every single drainage we sample has an undescribed species. Some of those drainages have been destroyed by agriculture. Species are gone, but at least there's a lot of them still there. South America, for example, too, here's a couple of species that represent not just new species, but new genera. There's a lot of them out there. And then here's something really weird. This genus Xenocautilus I described with a former grad student, Kyle Worrell. It's got a little tiny, I'll have to show you because it's pretty hard to see. A little tiny opening on the body here. It's only found in these guano peninsulas, bird guano peninsulas, islands off the Peruvian coast mainly. And okay, so this little opening, we figured it was used to release defensive compounds to maybe protect itself from ants or other predators. we brought some back alive and together with Eric Conti, this chemistry professor, we used the gas chromatography mass spec machine to try to see if we could get some sort of chemical signal from this reported gland. The data is still inconclusive. We haven't really found any sort of what looked like defensive compounds. So we're not sure what's going on, but it's, you know, it's got this little tiny opening with hairs almost like eyelashes to probably keep the dirt out. Cave beetles. Another grad student of mine, Tommy Apostolopoulos, we surveyed Eastern Kentucky, Somerset up, you know, towards Lexington. There's this species of beetle, Darlington. It's a single species. And okay, so we collected all these samples. We did molecular work. We did a cutting edge next generation sequencing technique called 3RAD, where you get piles of data. So we got over 94,000 DNA bases to hypothesize the relationship to all these different populations. A good study, molecular study, may have 3,000 bases. So you can see how much data we had. And then the branch lengths represent genetic divergence. And all those different colors represent, okay, what we thought was one species is actually 11. And a lot of these cave systems, I mean, they're really showing the sort of connectivity, you know, these sort of unique cave systems that, okay, I mean, most of them aren't terribly well protected, but at least we're sort of getting an idea of how these caves, you know, separate cave systems, the diversity of each cave system, which this beetle, you know, this applies to probably a lot of cave organisms. Dung beetle evolution. This is something I worked on for quite a while ago. I still do a little bit of work on dung beetles. I'm actually trying to get away from them, but the dogma was dung beetles. It's sort of, I mean, they're a really popular group with a lot of people that study insects, but they thought that the dung beetles diverged with one clade, one lineage leading to all tunnelers, one lineage leading to all rollers. And that's the dung manipulation behavior. So I did a study, and okay, what the accepted truth now is that rolling behavior evolved numerous times. I mean, here you can see 7 times the thick black bars are where rolling behavior evolved in this, you know, family tree of dung beetles. So not just one time, piles of times. Cave beetles, you might think that, you know, the climate crisis is not really affecting cave organisms. We certainly know it's affecting life on top of the planet and in oceans and things, but here's a paper that just came out showing the effect of a cave beetle. You might think caves would be very buffered against the climate crisis, but these things are, caves are predicted to get a little warmer and dry out. And our study showed that, you know, lower humidity levels really affect the survivability of these beetles, and that's probably true of a lot of cave organisms. I have to tell you about just one last project. This was an interesting project where there was this giant dung beetle that was only known from a few specimens. Last one was seen, collected, reported in 1949. Because it was so large, they thought it was associated with elephant dung, a specialist on elephant dung. So we did a study of the mouthpart morphology, and we found that the mouthparts didn't indicate that it was sort of a fresh dung feeder. And so we thought it might still be there. So we went to Angola, and, you know, I mean, the problem was too, I have to say, the elephants were wiped out. They either were shot for meat or driven out into Botswana and adjacent countries. But anyhow, so we went there, and lo and behold, we found the thing. It was still alive. We had to be a little bit careful because Angola is one of the more heavily mined countries. So we talked to Halo Trust, an NGO which was in charge of demining, but it's only found in southeastern Angola. And I think, you know, when I think about the legacy of being a teacher, it's really, you know, our students, you know, we're passing on the torch and educating them and getting them enthused. But the bottom left picture is a shot of me in Costa Rica. I think Clinton took that shot, and then top, he might have taken the top right one too. The top left is the Idea Fest from last year. And then the bottom right was from an Allen County grade school that came to visit. I mean, there were about 120 of these small squirmy students running around. I divided them into two groups and, sort of videos for one and then into the lab, couple of labs actually with the other. And anyhow, I'll end now. I've probably gone a little bit over time, but just thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate it. Any questions if you have?
Best Phelps, first, congratulations and thank you for investing your life in the university. And you're an exemplar for the rest of our faculty around what it's like to pursue your passion and get paid for it, as you described. It's not bad. But the way in which you both balance teaching, field work, and sponsored research. Students are the lifeblood of the academy. So will you talk about some of your students who've gone on and what they've gone on to do that you remember and where they are? Because what
Yeah,
is
actually, there's one more slide actually. I could show you. Okay, so I've had a lot of students. A lot of them, like my postdoc, she's a faculty member in Australia. Another student of mine, a Colombian, Jesus Orozco, he's a faculty member in near a university near Tegucigalpa, Honduras. There's another student, one of my former Ghanaian students. He's actually in Missouri at the university working there. So, another students. There's Kyle Worrell. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So Kyle, but the picture on the left actually is just some of my former all former grad students. Karen Bell on the right, Jesus, but yeah, they've gone on to do PhD, successful careers. One became a book author. Another one works for the National Park Service. So I think, I think, it looks good, to see them going on and doing great things in their lives that help society.
I want you not to feel too bad about not figuring out what that hole's about. We still haven't figured out what the appendix is for. So.
Yeah. We may
But
never.
I did have a question. The cave beetle, it's blind. What sort of special adaptations separate them maybe from some of the other beetles that can see?
Yeah, caves, complete darkness, so they don't need eyes. It's just, why bother? It sort of makes evolutionary sense just to sort of forego them, I suppose. But longer appendages, longer insect hairs we call setae, that give them more of a feel, antennae, long antennae, and they just move around. Complete darkness. It works for them. They're highly successful predators. Basically one of the top predators in caves in Kentucky. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, that concludes the academic affairs
All
matters.
right. Thank you very much. Very interesting committee meeting. All right, if everybody's okay, we're going to move directly into the Finance and Budget Committee, and I'll ask Regent West to carry on.
Okay, so our first action item we have is approval of faculty and staff personnel action. Susan, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Those are typical personnel and one-time payments that we bring to the board each quarter. There was nothing outstanding in the report. That was a little lengthy because it included all the 2% salary increases. So longer than normal, but nothing that anyone found unusual. But I'm happy to take any questions.
May I have a question? There will be none. I will entertain a motion to approve the faculty and staff personnel action.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. All right, the next item that we have is the 2022-23 statement of revenues and expenditures.
So no changes since I presented at the committee meeting in January. A good statement of revenues and expenses. We're tracking well against the budget and as compared to last year. So I did not find anything unusual to report.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to accept for filing the statement of revenues and expenditures for period ending December 31st, 2022 and 2021.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, and then we have the next item on the agenda, wasn't at the committee meeting. It's action item 3, which is acceptance of the auditor's reports and financial statements for WKYU TV and radio.
Yeah, so I'll just make a few introductory comments and then I'll turn it over to Jennifer Williams with Forbes, who conducted the audits. So again, really good audit. So for radio and television, and clean audit and unmodified opinion. And so great work to David and his staff. And then the NCAA agreed upon procedures. It's not technically an audit, and Jennifer will go through, but we work through things that we have to report to the NCAA. So no significant findings on that as well. So having said that, I will turn it over to Jennifer, who will run through this with the board. Thank you, Susan. Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Susan, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's kind of hard to follow the Beetle discussion, so I don't know about auditing and how exciting for here. But again, appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Like Susan mentioned, to present the results for the NCAA agreed upon procedures, as well as the TV and radio financial statement audits. As Susan mentioned, we did accomplish the audit plan in the timeline. So it was the first year with Forbes. So we had a great cooperation with the team, David and Emily, as well as Christy and Randy for the NCAA. So great cooperation from them. We did issue an unmodified or clean opinion, as Susan mentioned, on both of those financial statements. The agreed upon procedures is not an opinion, but again, we do note that information was presented fairly in relation to the statement of revenues and expenditures. On the TV and radio, we did have an emphasis of matter for the adoption of GASB 87. So that impacted the university as well as the station. There was some leases there. We did have a revision for the cash balance and investment. So when we performed those procedures, it was just a classification between cash and investment. So we had moved some items, thought that they were better presented as investments versus cash. But again, no material impact to the financial statements. As mentioned, we adopted 87, and then the information submitted to CPB and NCAA within the required time frame that it needed to be submitted. Just a couple of financial highlights here. First is the radio. So you'll see here, this is a snip from the management's discussion analysis. So the radio's net position increased approximately 434,000. One item impacting that was the PPP loan that was received was formally forgiven during the year. So 144,000 was recognized as a gain in the financial statements. And then the grants that radio receives is approximately 399,000. So that is reflected in these financial statements here. Going on to TV, their net position increased 581,000. They as well had the PPP loan approximately 171,000. So that was reflected as a gain in their financials as well. And then the grants from CPB was 768,000 during the year. So yeah, there you'll see just the current assets and the assets held. There is where the little bit of the revision was made in those line items there. So NCAA, switching gears there, they had we issued their agreed upon procedures report on January 12th this year. The statement of revenues and expenses showed 142,710 on there, and there was no significant reportable matters issued in that report. We do issue a Board of Regents letter for the TV and radio financial statement. So here's just a summary of those key items that are included in that letter. Again, this just tells you that we follow these generally accepted accounting principles. We make sure the financial statements are prepared in accordance with those principles, issue the unmodified opinion. The significant accounting policies, as I discussed, there was GASB 87, so we did have to look closely and work with the team there. There was no alternative accounting treatments that were noted in the financial statements. And then management's judgments and accounting estimates, we pay particular attention to those that are inherent in the financial statement. So no issues or concerns with those. We just look at the benefit pension plan and the assumptions that the actuaries use. And so we look at those reports closely. The financial statement disclosure, GASB 87 did have some additional disclosures with those leases. And so those were included on the financial statements. There was only 2 audit adjustments that we had. One, as I mentioned, was the revision for the cash and the investment. And then there was just a pension allocation that we updated one of the percentages. So a small impact there. And again, no other significant accounting policies to discuss other than GASB 87. And then the only other communication that we had was management representation letter that is signed by management when we prepare the financial statements, and that is attached to the Board of Regents letter. But other than that, there was no significant matter. So again, no, in any of matters, if there was material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, that would be in the letter. So again, kudos to the team. There was no significant issues in that regard to report either. So any questions?
This net position increase in both the radio and TV. Is a significant portion of that loan forgiveness?
This year, yes, about that 170,000 and 144, that was primarily part of it. A lot of it's just the grants that are received as well, and then the expenditures that relate to that.
They both look like they're on very firm ground as far as operating is concerned. Which I think is commendable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just like to, since we have Emily here, just if you could comment for us about, as we have, excuse me, have a new auditor this year, your perspective on the process and challenges, successes, how it went.
Emily England is our, just for those of you that don't know, she's our Director of Finance and also our Compliance Officer related to all grants. So I'm happy that she could join us today. And giving that perspective, I think, would be beneficial.
I thought I was going to be able to sneak out with not having any questions at all. It was a seamless transition to Forvis. Jennifer and her team were fantastic to work with. I can't say enough good things about them. It was probably the first time since I've been there, which has been 10 years, with the radio and TV audits, that I felt like everything was looked at thoroughly and that they just did a fantastic job. It was just really good. They asked me lots of questions and I love to answer questions, and it makes me, go through with a fine tooth comb as well. And I felt like they did that. And so I think you got a really good packet this year for us. So thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo that briefly on our behalf. I think that this is the first time that I've been engaged directly with an auditor since I've been in this role, which is 9.5 years. And the thoroughness, we love details and we want people to dig down deep. And I think it helps with transparency. I think it helps when you're dealing with the amount of federal grant money that we deal with, and certainly being accountable to people that donate money to you as a department. So I appreciate Forvis's work. I think they're an outstanding firm. That being said, we didn't have any findings, so that's another positive.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate those comments.
And I think that's not to disparage the previous people at all. And I think we heard that it's just good practice every so many years to switch.
It is good practice, and one that we've tried to engage in across the enterprise. A fresh set of eyes, a new set of perspectives, and a lack of familiarity creates questions that make the organization grow. and point out things that otherwise might just be passed over. So we've gone through this process of getting fresh eyes and fresh partners and doing RFPs in many areas. And one of the reasons you do that is because it just helps the institution get better. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, and congratulations to all for a very good report and a thorough audit. And if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept the auditor's report and financial statements for WKYU TV and radio.
So
All in favor? All opposed?
Please note an abstention for me. Thanks.
All right, and the motion passes. Are you gonna say to discuss the athletics report as well? NCAA compliance report.
Oh, yes. So the NCAA, so that is an agreed upon procedures report. And so we do look through the statement of revenues and expenditures, look at those lines. We do follow the NCAA guidelines that are reported. And so there was an agreed upon procedures report issued, and there was no significant reportable matters to report to you today as well.
Anybody have any comments or questions about this report? Being none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the independent accountant's report on applying agreed upon procedures for NCAA compliance.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Okay, I think that completes finance and budget.
Thank you very much. Everybody good? Let's press on. The next committee is Student Affairs and Regent Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Bell. We have 2 action items and 2 information items. 2 action items that were not presented at the committee meeting on January the 20th. The
Regent
first
Thomas?
act-
Some of you may have noticed we have some guests who've shown up in the back of the room. And I wonder if we might do the information item for cheer before the action item so that folks can get along their way. Thank you. Surprise. That's you.
Or you want them to stand up or right over here. You just come stand over here. Do I have to use the mic?
Yeah, because we're feeding.
Oh, got it. Okay, I can do that.
As enthralling as admissions reports and policies are, I thought that maybe they didn't want to say that. All right.
Oh, okay, I was just wondering. We're following.
Hi, my name is Allie Lumpkin. I am the spirit coordinator here at Western Kentucky and the head cheerleading coach for both our all-girl team and our co-ed team. This morning, we have our all-girl national champions from UCA College Nationals 2023. We're so excited to be here, and thank you all so much for taking the time to recognize us and celebrate their accomplishments all season long. We really appreciate all the recognition that you guys continue to give us and the support as well. I will take a second to mention our co-ed team as well. This year in 2023 was the first time they were back into their large co-ed division after competing in the small co-ed division since 2021, sorry. And so we are very excited to be back into our original large co-ed division and getting back to the top with that program as well. They had some mistakes this year on day 2 on their finals performance, which brought them out of first place, but we're well where we need to be, and we will not let that happen again. So we're excited for the future for co-ed for sure. But today, just to kind of celebrate our all-girl and our accomplishments that they've had this season, this is their second national title since I've been here in 2021. So we're really excited again about the our successes previously and just the future of this program and what we're going to continue to do. I do believe we have a video of their nationals performance that we would like to share with you guys. So just a couple things about our performance from day two. So coming out of day one, we were actually the last team to make it into finals. We had some mistakes and also a mistake on my end, playing the wrong music, getting a time violation, everything. And I really thought that I had messed it up for all of us. But fortunately, we got a second chance, and we were the first team to compete in finals on day two. And so we went in and we knew that we had to do the best of our ability in order to go from seventh and to give ourselves any type of chance of winning. So they were able to do that, and just like the composure and determination that they had to go out and attack that routine was iconic for sure. They ended up winning by 5 points against the second place team was 5 points behind them. And that's a really big gap in the cheerleading world and on the cheerleading score sheet. So that was really cool. And one of the coolest things about our routines, and I think the judges always comment on it and the commentators on ESPN, is the use of our red towels. They love that. We love to be able to implement that into our routines. And that's just something that's a staple for us. So we're really excited about that part. Another thing that I'd like to mention is we do have a few members that are part of the U.S. national team. We have a group of all-girl ladies that are on the USA Premier All-Girl team, and then we also have two, a male and a female on our co-ed team that are part of the U.S. Premier co-ed team. They will compete at the International Cheerleading Union Championships in April, and they will compete against approximately 20 to 30 other countries from all across the world. So our ladies that are a part of that here are Ashley, Maddie, Carly, and Kate. They're over here. They're incredibly hardworking and have really pushed. Last year, they were alternates on the team, and this year they have been selected to be able to be on the mat as 4 of the 24 ladies that will be competing. So we're really excited for them. Co-ed hasn't had their mat selection yet. I actually get to be a part of the coaching staff for the Premier co-ed team. And then just kind of taking these girls along on the journey too is just something really special for our program. So again, thank you all so much for the the support that you give us continually from year to year. And we hope that we're doing all that we can to bring what you would like for us to bring to the university and just increasing the student experience with game days and as well as becoming entertaining and good ambassadors for the university. So we really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
So Regent Vale, one of the things that is so important about this is, Todd Stewart and I have talked about, the expectation to win championships. We won 3 national championships in the past 3 years in cheer. The only other national championship we have outside of cheer is, if I recall correctly, football. And so these athletes, and they are certainly athletes, are representing us at the very highest level. I don't want to put you on the spot, Allie, but who were the number 2, 3, and 4 teams this year?
Second place was the University of Alabama. Third place was, y'all are gonna have to help me out. Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, and fourth was Ole Miss. So we're competing against all D1A divisions, all Power 5, like Power 5 schools. Yeah, so there were approximately, I think, 17 in our division as a whole, and they took 7 into finals. And yeah, came out on top.
So the work that we're doing is both elevating the program, elevating the university on a very important platform for us. And to the members of the team, thank you for your sacrifice and all the work that you put in. One of the things that we made sure they now have access to is weight training, and for better or for worse, right? And every night they are in the gym training, nutritional support, and they truly represent us as well as any other team on our campus. And so congratulations again. We're very proud of you all.
Thank you.
Glasgow does claim Allie.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
We're gonna move to XGA information on it.
Yes. So if it pleases the board, I'd love to have our second group of students come up and present to the board today. The Student Government Association is going to address the board and talk a little bit about their year and work that they've been doing. They're finishing up their tenure as a student government legacy this year. In April, they'll be voting for their new representation. And let me see if I can mind your way. So I'd love to let these wonderful student leaders introduce themselves and talk a little bit to you today about what the Student Government Association is, what they've been doing this year. This is an exceptional group of students and have done some wonderful work. I'm very proud of what they've been able to do in this year. Just a little bit of logistics. And so while we're sorting that out, I'll just say, not only do we have the benefit of having a president of our Student Government Association as a member of our Board of Regents, but this is an elected student body and an appointed student body. And just like we have a faculty senate and a staff senate, we have our Student Government Association. And they work for the betterment of the students as advocates and representatives and to support the student work and cause and experience here on the Hill. So I'd love to turn it over to the Student Government Association.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves, and then we'll get into our presentation. So my name is Lauren Willett. I am a senior here on the Hill, and I am the Chief of Staff for our Executive Cabinet.
Tell us where you're from.
I'm from Owensboro, Kentucky.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Olivia Feck. I'm actually a senior here at Western. I am the committee chair for our mental health and well-being committee, and I'm also from Lexington, Kentucky.
What's up, guys? My name is Sam Kurtz. Good to see you guys here. I'm a sophomore here on the Hill. I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm third generation Hilltopper, but I'm the current administrative vice president. But very happy to be here.
Thank you. My name's Margaret Glazer. I'm a senior at Western. I'm from Louisville and I'm on judicial council.
Hey guys, my name's Rush. I'm originally from Marshall County, Kentucky. I'm a freshman senator here, so my first year in the Senate, but I'm also the secretary for the Campus Improvements and Sustainability Committee as well.
I believe we do have a PowerPoint. Beautiful. All right. So, as you guys could possibly imagine, as students within our organization of SGA, we get the question of what is SGA and what do you guys even do? We get that a bunch. But we like to say that we are a group of dedicated change makers. We're advocates. We are basically the liaisons between faculty and staff and our students. We're trying to make sure that we are knocking down barriers and we're building bridges in order to make sure that we can make sure that our students are getting the best that they can have as far as resources go, whether that's making legislation. So whenever I'm talking about what do we do and how do we do it, we are creating legislation, we're writing bills, we're meeting with faculty, we are meeting with the deans, we're having monthly meetings, weekly meetings, making sure that we're collaborating with students and listening to them and what are their needs. And we often do that through our interests in our positions as what we ran for. So as you can see, like there's senators that are in the Gatton Academy, they're in ISEC, they're in international students. There's all different ranges of what we like to cover. And my particular interest is in mental health. I'm a psych sciences major, neuroscience minor. And so I just want to make sure that everyone's getting their needs met as far as that aspect goes. But we can go a little bit more into our other branches. Bear with me. Oh no. Anywho, so just as you guys should know, there are 3 branches, just like our own state government and our national government. It'll get to me eventually. Anyhow, fiddle with that, Julia. Cool. So we have our 3 branches. We've got our exec. I'm sure you know one of them. Paul Bornfield right over here. He's our student body president and our student regent, meeting with you guys all the time. And then we have our executive vice president, and then we also have our administrative vice president, which is right here, Sam. Goes over a lot of the financial stuff, and then Garrison, our EVP, is going over a lot of what is involved with student experience, enrollment, that kind of thing, making sure that I believe they are meeting with the Student Life Foundation a whole lot, HRL, that kind of thing. And then they are also made up by their cabinet, which is their chief of staff, their director of IT, director of enrollment of student experience. And then, oh yeah, I already covered that, but so there you go. And then we also have our legislative position or branch, which is where I come into play, where a lot of our senators come into play. It's a big chunk of our organization. We've got 55 members. We're having elections in the fall and spring semesters. So we are elected by our student body. We've got our Speaker of the Senate that is chairing our debates, making sure that our meetings are going as they should. And then we also have our parliamentarian keeping us in place, making sure that we're in decorum and we're not bashing each other and that kind of thing, being proper and that and whatnot. And then we also have our secretary just taking minutes, and our committee chairs that is a position that I have as well, making sure that our teams, I call it, we're collaborating how we need to within our interests of what our committees are operating within. And we also have our senators. And like I said, we have a bunch of different positions that they run for and different interests that they run for, whether that's ISEC, whether that's Gatton. It could be a class position. It could be something with first gen. There's a bunch of things that they cover, and it's a really cool position. You also have judicial, which Margaret is also a part of. There's 3 roles that you could have within that branch. You could have our Chief Justice, our Associate Chief Justice, and all of the other justices that are looking at the constitutionality of our resolutions and our bills, and making sure that we are abiding by those and checking, checks and balances, that kind of thing. It's very self-explanatory as far as we're modeling a lot of what we do off of our state government or national government. And there you go.
Awesome. So organizational aid is one of our big kind of signature services, as we like to call it, that SGA offers. It's what I'm kind of in charge of, but basically, a fifth of our budget goes to organizational aid. So our budget every year is $100,000. That's kind of like what I directly kind of overview and manage a little bit, but organizational aid is a big chunk of it. It's 1/5 of our budget. But every semester I try to divide it in half. So I have 10,000 for the fall and 10,000 for the spring. And essentially every RSO on campus can apply for up to $500 of club funding. And this is a really big deal because a lot of student organizations on campus know about and love this organizational aid process. It's a very valuable thing that we offer. And I was very happy to announce that last year we had a record number of applicants. We had 31 applicants, and we usually in the years past have barely hit 20. So that's really good that a lot of organizations are kind of known about that. We really try to make it known this year that organizational aid is a big thing that a lot of organizations can take a part of. But it's $500 each that they can apply for, but some organizations like smaller clubs that are just starting, maybe they're trying to get on their feet, don't need as much. So they can apply for, maybe like 300, 200, and then we just kind of like go from there. But we have a board of 6 people that are elected from the Senate that all kind of overview every application we get. And we usually meet bi-weekly every Thursday at 5:30, but we just go over what's kind of like what gets to us. But it's a really great process, and I really enjoyed having the opportunity to help other great RSOs on campus. This is like one of my favorite things we've done this year. And so earlier on in the school year, we were all kind of like brainstorming in the office one day. And like one of the big things that we're trying to do this year as SGA as a whole is make the student experience available to all students. And so you would think that the student experience would always be available to all students. And for the most part, it is. But from time to time, there's certain events on campus that some students don't feel like they're welcome at. And so we were trying to think of, what are like the major events that people do on campus. And as we were brainstorming, it was during the fall semester. And I remember one morning we were all up in the office before the game started, and we saw the tailgates out there. And as we looked around the tailgates, we saw the alumni tailgate, we saw the Spirit Master tailgate, and we saw the Greek Life tailgates. And we saw sort of like a few other like little smaller organizations, but we were like, if we as a student weren't in any of those organizations, where would we go? And honestly, I don't know where I would go because I've always had the blessing to be in a student organization that's represented on South Lawn. So we got brainstorming, and we were like, well, what if we created our own tent and our own tailgate experience that's not available to just one student organization, but to every student on campus? And as you can see here, that's exactly what we did. So we ordered a tent, and we had 2 tents actually. They're pretty decent sized tents. They're weatherproof. They should last us from 10 to 15 years. It's a really great investment. We got our logo presented on it as well. But essentially for every tailgate, me and Cole and Garrison went to Gordon Food Services and just bought a ton of frozen food. And we also bought some grill equipment, as you can see there, that can be used in the years coming on. But we grilled out on our first debut, which was homecoming, which is a great time to debut it, obviously. But we made 500 meals. So we had 500, we had 250 hot dogs, 250 hamburgers, and we also had like 500 chips and 500 waters. And I'm pleased to say that every single one of those meals was given out. We had students lined around the tailgate, and we had so many students come up to us and been like, I wasn't going to come to the tailgate, but I saw this on the Instagram story, so I came. And that was really kind of a fulfilling moment for us as SGA as a whole, because it really kind of helped us really hit on our mission of helping all the students and really being the voice. And also students, we bought cornhole boards and cornhole equipment, and we had students like lining up to play cornhole. We had students inside the tent, and overall it's just a great experience because the whole student body felt welcome at something that they should always feel welcome on. This is another great thing that SGA does. It's another one of our sort of signature services. But this year, as we ran, we really wanted to give back to the students. And so we raised the scholarship budget. And so these are the kind of scholarships, the main ones. The first one I really want to hit on is the SGA Promise Scholarship. So that's been spearheaded by our Director of Student Experience alongside the entire executive committee. And that has been a really great thing we did. So essentially it's a need-based scholarship. And so we first open it up to students that are Pell Grant eligible, and you don't have to be Pell Grant eligible to apply. It's just, it helps you in the grading process. And then we ask them certain things like, what are you involved in on campus? Like, what do you love about Western? And we kind of like graded upon that. But we kind of believe that there's like a promise that like everyone should be able to afford higher education. And that's something that the university holds, but something at SGA that we kind of stand alongside that promise. And so we know Western's done a lot of great initiatives in the past few years to make education available to all. But we figured if Western can do it, we can do it too. And so that's kind of what we did for the SGA Promise. A second thing I'd really like to hit on is the summer internship process, or the summer internship scholarship, my apologies. So that is also a new thing that we brought back this year. So essentially, we were trying to think of, for all the students that are going to different cities for the summer, a lot of people in SGA tend to go to DC and intern, and a lot of these internships are unpaid. And as with inflation and everything going on right now, the cost of living has skyrocketed for unpaid interns. And so we were trying to think of what's a way that we can give back to those interns. So it was another sort of need-based scholarship, but we also did it off a curriculum. We asked them certain things like, what's your internship like? What do you hope to get out of your internship? What do you think this internship will help you like further your career path? Kind of stuff like that, making sure that the internship is legit and that they're really dedicated to doing that internship. Because we believe if they are really passionate about this internship, then they should deserve the opportunity to not have to worry about the money for the internship. And then another great scholarship we have is the first generation scholarship. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's sort of like the SGA promise as well, where it's need-based, but also curriculum-based, like the summer internship process, where we ask them, like, what are you passionate about at Western, stuff like that. That was a really great thing. And we also had scholarship vouchers, the SGA book voucher scholarship. So we know that some students have trouble paying for their textbooks because, textbooks are very expensive if it depends on your majors. Like, for example, if you're a STEM major, you're most likely spending around $300 a year or a semester at least on your books. And so we made 15 $50 scholarships just to kind of help have a wide range of students that could take in that money, but also kind of help them with that. And finally, actually not finally, so two more, my apologies, but the Black History Month scholarship is formerly known as the Gregory McKinney Black History Month scholarship. So if you guys didn't know, Gregory McKinney was the first African-American student regent at Western Kentucky University. He unfortunately passed away last semester, but he was a great voice at Western, and he really left like a lasting legacy. And so as soon as he passed away, we sent his condolences to his family, of course, first. But then after that, we reached out to his family, and we asked them if they would be willing to have a scholarship in his honor. And they were really ecstatic about the opportunity. They absolutely matched the scholarship. And we're just now grading them now. I just got out of grade like yesterday. But we hope to have it available to a student that has a deep history and deep connection to Black History Month. And we kind of had it in the scholarship, sort of had it like, what's your involvement on campus? One, just as a curriculum base, but also we had them write an essay on what Black History Month meant to them and what kind of what Gregory McKinney's legacy also meant to them. So that was a really great initiative, and I'm really happy we did that. And then finally,
Okay, and then the last scholarship that we did for this year is the Hilltopper Hero Scholarship. It was something that was particularly interesting to me and to the rest of exec. I'm an ROTC, and I will be going active duty into the Army as soon as I graduate. And so something that Cole and Garrison and Sam and I and Dante all talked about was, how can we give back to our students who are serving in the military? We have over 3,000 students as of 2016, I believe, and I believe in 2018 it was going over 4,000 students who are either actively serving in the reserves or have served in their life. So we wanted to find a way that we could give back to those students and show them that no matter where they are in the world, while they are enrolled as a student and even after they graduate, they are a Hilltopper. And we want to, show our appreciation for their service. So we actually had 39 students apply, and the winner was awarded a $3,000 scholarship. We had applications from all over the world. One of our top ones was deployed currently in Afghanistan. He is a single father of two. He is full-time working, in the Army, and then full-time online as well. So we wanted to give as much as we could to whoever we could, but we actually had a on-campus student win the scholarship, Logan Festervin. He and his twin sister both enlisted into the National Guard, and they are both going through medic training in the infantry. And he was pretty influential during the COVID era, giving shots in the emergency time, I guess you could say, for the National Guard. So we were able to give that award to him, and he is standing there with a check. But that was a really, really great process for us because we got to work with the ROTC program. Colonel Struzik, who is the professor of military science, and then the rest of the cadre were able to help us grade. And they have said over and over again how thankful they are to SGA for their involvement and for their support of military students on campus. It'll load. Maybe. Oh, okay. maybe. Okay, I'll just go ahead and start talking. So our next one that we have that I'm responsible for is the Earn a Computer program. We have a lot of students who may not be able to afford a computer, or their computer will suddenly break and they don't know what to do because they may not have the money or the time to go get a computer. But we work with Surplus and Supply to use the computers that the university is done using, and they donate those, give those to Surplus and Supply. Those are given as become federal property. And from there, they're usually auctioned off, starting like $10. And these are like Apple laptops or desktops. We have some Surface Pro tablets, but they give us the opportunity to give these to students instead of them having to go buy new laptops or desktops. So we have had over 100 students be able to get a computer since the beginning of this program. And just this past semester, we've had 15. I believe we have 5 more on my desk right now waiting to be given a computer. And I bet we'll have many more the rest of the semester. And the next one I want to hit on is the SGA voucher program. This program has taken off enormously this semester. We are really, really proud of this program. So it started back in 2012 with transcript and ID vouchers. The transcript, we would pay for half of the transcript price, and the ID we pay for half as well, which I think it's $20. So we paid for 10 of it. Students would just come in, we would write it down, and we would give them a little voucher receipt, carbon copy, and they would take it to these offices, and they would send that to our accounts, and we would just enter account them at the end of the year. Well, this has continued to grow. And from that, we now do Preston Center, ID, and dental. We did offer transcript and counseling center vouchers at one time, but after COVID, counseling center became free for students. And then the transcript, I believe, is also free, or at least majorly discounted. So the Preston Center, we pay for half of part-time students membership. So it's $17.50. And then we also do the ID voucher still, which is the $10 voucher for the $20 ID. And then the most impressive one for me is the dental hygiene vouchers. So our dental hygiene program, if you don't know, all students have to have about 6 to 10 students sit in their chair while they are a dental hygiene student per semester, which means they are working about 4 hours on each person, giving them all the treatments that they could possibly need without a referral for $25 for students. This is the cheapest you can get it in Bowling Green. And it's not only giving these students a grade, but it's also giving students on campus the ability to get free dental care, if not severely discounted dental care. So we were able to provide 38 dental vouchers last semester. And after talking with the dental hygiene students, we saw that they really appreciative for one, but for two, students were showing us that this is what they wanted our money to go towards. So we bumped that up to 39 for this semester. And as of, I believe it was 4 days ago, all of them are already gone. So that just shows us what the students have been wanting, what the students have been needing. And I hope that this program continues to take off.
Yeah, so just wanted to touch on a couple of different services that SGA offers. The first one here is the many academic materials we provide to students for free. One of the biggest ones is going to be testing materials. So that's going to be our blue and green books. I think the SGA office only does green books now because they're recyclable, better for the environment. But also like Scantrons, that's big. You're going to be hard struck to find a student at Western that isn't taking at least one exam on their time on the Hill. And for me, I'm taking a history exam tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but on Tuesday, and I need a green book. And our teacher in that class was like, hey, you can go to the history department and buy a green book for 25 cents. And I raised my hand. I was like, so actually, I'm an SGA and we offer them for free in the SGA office. So it really just gives us an opportunity to show how many resources we provide to students. And that's super easy to broadcast and say, hey, we do this for students. This is a tangible thing that y'all can come and use for us. We also provide spaces for students to study. Our office is always open for students to come talk with our senators, any of the people in our Senate, and talk with us about any ideas they have, or even just study and get some study hours in for sure. So I want to touch on one of the bigger resolutions that we've just passed. Senator Matthew Gadd spearheaded this initiative to get Narcan on all the residence halls on campus. Narcan is kind of like it's a narcotic drug overdose device. If a student is overdosing on anything, they can be stimulated with the Narcan, and it's super safe. Even if you're not overdosing, you can take it and nothing wrong. It's super safe. It's something we like to add to our toolbox. I'm a tour guide here at Western, and when we give the stop about the emergency pole and the extra large sidewalks for emergency vehicles, you can see parents' eyes light up because they just feel like there's an extra sense of security for their students on campus, which is really cool to see. I think so, yeah. That's it. And then the last thing is just our campus safety walk. This is an annual event that SGA puts on. We invite campus police, faculty, staff, and even just students to come along with us. We try to do it at sundown so that we can see campus both during the day and at night. It's utilized to just see different areas of campus that could use improvement. It's anything from a steep set of stairs that could be mellowed out a little bit more, or a light pole that needs to be added so people can see better. It's really good for campus. I think every time we do it, we get about 2 or 3 things that we're like, hey, we could do something there. And then that kind of leads into Campus Improvement and Sustainability Committee, the committee that I'm in. And that just gives us an opportunity for things to do.
So this is a list of all our committees for SGA. The first one listed is our Legislative Operations Committee. So this committee reviews all of our legislation. It's unique in that way that making sure that before legislation is brought to the Senate, that it is reviewed for constitutionality and the formatting is correct. Every senator is on a committee on SGA, and then any student at Western can join a committee meeting. They meet once a week. All their meeting times are listed on the SGA website, so it's very open for all students to be able to participate. Student Experience and Enrollment Committee, they have worked very hard to connect the student experience to what SGA does. And that also goes along with our rising retention rates at Western. Outreach and Student Experience does work with students being able to participate in SGA events. Some of the projects they've worked on are, like Lauren mentioned, the vouchers for dental cleanings, as well as scholarships for incentivizing students to go to career fairs. So when they do attend a career fair, they can sign up to potentially receive a scholarship through SGA to incentivize that. The Community Relations Committee is our newest committee on SGA that works with the greater Bowling Green community to kind of bridge that gap between campus, between students, and Bowling Green as a city. Recently, they have worked on the Recyclops program, so offering students who live off campus a voucher to be able to recycle from their off-campus residents, as well as working with the Chamber of Commerce in Bowling Green. As Rush mentioned, the Campus Improvements and Sustainability Committee recently passed they are starting a pollinator garden right by Weatherby, in between Weatherby and FAC. They've also put benches and hammock poles on South Lawn, and they've also passed bills to provide hygiene products to students. And then Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee works to create a more open environment for all students on campus. That's our minority students, as well as students with accessibility issues, and LGBTQ plus students. This year, they've passed legislation to give donations to the Jonesville Academy in Bowling Green as well. And then I'll let Olivia talk about student mental health.
Sure. Probably one of the coolest committees, but I'm kind of biased whenever I say that or talk about it. So with the Student Mental Health and Wellbeing Committee, it's all in the name. We're focused on making sure that our students' welfare and their well-being and their mental health is at like where it should be. And we're looking at that. We're talking to them. We're out there. We're getting out onto like the actual sidewalks, the pavements, into the classrooms, trying to make sure whether that's through polls or just questions or inviting people into our meeting spaces. What do you need? What do you not know about? What can we talk more about? So we've done Title IX training in the past. We've also done a lot of tabling for the counseling center or the Tally Family Center. That's what we like to hit hard on, whether that's raising awareness for sexual assault or domestic violence. We also have our events where we have kickoff events where we're partnering or collaborating with the Counseling Center and Elizabeth Madriaga of the Counseling Center, making sure that they have the funds for their t-shirts, and if they need any volunteers for their In Their Shoes event or anything like that. I'm also, in their committees for trying to plan sexual assault Prevention Month and that kind of thing. And, you know, just speaking personally as a student who went through the Summer Scholar Program, I'm also in Student Support Services Disabilities. I understand that it's really hard as a human, as a student, to go through campus, go through college as someone who might not have a background that's really knowledgeable in going through higher ed. And so I understand that perspective, and my committee, my team, we're all, you know, we all have different knowledge and backgrounds where we're coming together and we're, you know, highlighting things that people might not realize about mental health or just what goes into student well-being. But that kind of ends our slide or presentation, but I just really want to say from all of us from SGA, we just want to thank you for allowing us the time to speak to you guys. We're honored to be here, and if you have any questions, we're always open to talk.
Are there AEDs in the dorms also? Well, even every building it is the darkest located next to the AED. It would.
I especially appreciated, Olivia, your comment about building bridges.
Well, there's no more questions. We'll wrap that up. But thank you all for letting us come today and talk to you. Thank you, President Cavoni. Enjoy the rest of the week.
We need a break.
Yes, because
How about
this card is currently a couple.
About let's see, it's 10:26. Come back in 9 minutes.
We have one second.
Restrooms are right around the corner here.
We're all in one same place.
9 minutes.
9 minutes. 14. 14 minutes. All right.
That'll help.
All right.
Congratulations on the order. Thank you. Really
Yeah.
proud of that. I can't say enough about it. Your Southwest. Bigger cost increase. We plan to. Whenever we plan for budgets, here to be. Budget continues.
Well, that's what I thought.
Emily does a
That's
great
what I
job.
thought.
Sounds like she really had her act together.
Stretch. All right, we will resume and I'll turn it back over to Regent Thomas.
All right, well, we will continue with the Student Affairs Committee report. And we will go to our first action item, approval of WKU admission policy. I do want to say again that these two items were not presented at our committee meeting in January the 20th. And I will call on Dr. Logan to present that.
Thank you, Regent Thomas. Both of these next two action items, these policies that we're looking at today, I want to preface by saying that these are both policies that we have in place already at the institution. The admissions policy is in the university catalog, and that the student code of conduct is a part of our student handbook. And this is a formalization really of these policies as university policy, and in preparation of our accreditation year coming up. And then we're putting this in the appropriate structure in place. So they're not revisions of policies in place, but they're really just the formalization. And I'll talk about those in more detail if you would like to. The first item, approval of the admissions policy. This is a summation or a comprehensive list of all of the admission policies for the university: undergraduate, transfer students, graduate students, and international students. And I have asked representatives from the enrollment management areas to be here today. Mr. Scott McDonald, our Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management, and Mr. Chris Jensen, who is Assistant Vice President for Student Success, who administers our transfer recruitment. Dr. Ranjit Kudali, who does graduate work, and Dr. John Sunnigard, who does the international admissions work, couldn't be with us today, but I wanted to make sure that the experts were here with us today if you have questions about the policy. So again, this piece is just a comprehensive summation of, well, it's the entirety of the policy that we have in a university catalog. Any questions?
Any questions or any further discussion?
You talking about the first policy or both?
The first policy.
First policy, admission policy, right? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the adoption of the admission policy? Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. All right, now we'll move to our second action item, the approval of student conduct policy. And again, Dr. Logan.
Thank you. This is, again, a formalization of the policy that we already have in place with the institution. The student code of conduct represents the conduct standards, the processes, and procedures for administration of conduct review by the institution, and the assurances of rights and responsibilities of students in our institution. There is a slight addition that came with this policy, and that was the incorporation of Kentucky House Bill 290 of this last legislative year, which provoked what I call an extension of due process to certain situations of conduct which would result in suspension, expulsion, or removal from university housing. So that is it's a lengthy document, but it's meant to be exhaustive in terms of making sure that we detail the processes of what is considered misconduct in question, and then also what is the process and procedure when we address conduct, and also the assurances of rights and responsibilities of our students.
Any other questions or further discussion in this?
When I went through it, I was just looking for vaping. That's a big issue on high school campuses, and it may be here and I just missed it, but I don't know if there's any policies on vaping, if we should have policies on vaping. What are your thoughts on?
It essentially falls under our smoking policy related to our housing residence life, fire safety system, so anything that would trigger that is a part of them.
Thank you, Michael. I neglected to introduce Michael Crow, our Director of Student Conduct, and Dr. Martha Sales, our Dean of Students, Assistant Vice President and Dean of Students, who administer our conduct process for the university. I meant to have those experts recognized also to the board. But great question. And that's represented in housing specifically or expressly in the housing handbook in terms of what is allowed in the residence halls and then out of the residence halls in the smoking.
That's a good question.
Thank you, Michael.
Any further discussion, questions?
I have one quick one. Under section D, University Discipline Committee, the UDC is established by action of the Board of Regents. That's after the need for that arises. Is that correct?
You want to explain that, Michael?
Yes, essentially, yes, that is after that.
Thank you. Yes, essentially that is after that process has went through the appeal process related to the UDC as well as the president, then to the board. So after that step, then you would be involved with that student conduct process.
But then would that evoke a specially called meeting, or would that just fall under a normally scheduled meeting for expediency?
It would be a meeting that would need to be called. It would not fall under your regular schedule.
That's it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So can I have some clarity on that? It doesn't mean the board has to gather though. It means that there's a committee that's created of faculty and staff that's authorized by the board. I'm trying to read D.
It says by action of the Board of Regents, and I understand that the delegation of authority by the board to the president, to the, I see that in the beginning, but my concern was under that section, it does talk about action of the board.
So it has to be a board vote to constitute the committee? Is that
Yes,
correct? Okay.
absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that clarification.
But it's not a hearing.
No,
In front of the
no, it's not.
No, it's, no.
Just clarify.
Any other clarification?
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the student conduct policy. So moved. There's a second.
Second.
All right, those all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
Regent Thomas, before, I just wanted to, before we finish this, Dr. Logan, most of the people that you brought in today, we know, but Mr. McDonald, I think is new. This is first time to appear before us, right? So.
Yes, it is.
In a very important position. Could we get an introduction of him?
I would be more than happy to introduce Scott. If you would stand. Scott McDonald comes to us from his previous role as Dean of Admissions at University of Kentucky. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's another school in the state. And we had the opportunity to invoke to create an assistant vice president role for enrollment management. It's a very important priority to this division. It's a very important priority to the university, the way we cultivate and develop our enrollment processes, our recruitment and our outreach and development of students, a pipeline of students to our institution. Scott comes to us with an exceptional experiential background in enrollment management. In fact, he and I worked together when we were both in Texas doing the similar work in enrollment management, which is just a coincidence. It was I followed him here to Kentucky. And when he had the opportunity and was looking for a position, and we had the opening, it was a wonderful coincidence and a fantastic synergy to bring on an accomplished professional in enrollment management. I'm very glad to have him on our staff, and he's doing some wonderful work with the development and continuation of evolution of our enrollment and recruitment of undergraduate students. And so, Scott, anything you'd like to say? Originally from Texas, went to school, University of Arkansas,
and got here as soon as I could. So, yeah, no, it's an honor to serve in this position. I look forward to working with Dr. Logan, the provost and the president, and you on our enrollment goals. So go Tops.
Thank you, Regents.
Dr. Logan, thank you for your input today, and also the two student groups that was very excellent. I appreciate you.
I apologize that we ended on a policy. It was not a little anticlimactic. National champions.
I want to just comment on our student groups that come in. I am always really impressed with the intelligence and the presentation of the students that we have that comes before Board of Regents. I think they're just outstanding. And somebody here is doing one heck of a good job. Whoever's doing it, I'm proud of them. But I just think we have an outstanding group of students and we see it every time there's a presentation. I mean, they just shine. It's just,
Yeah, I compare myself to that age. I'd been just a nervous.
Yeah.
wreck.
Oh, yeah.
That kid probably wouldn't have got the word out of my mouth.
it just, they're just so mature and
Yeah.
intelligent. It just, I'm just proud to see it.
Thank
Good
you.
job, Roger.
Chair Bell, that completes.
All right. We'll move into the executive committee. I'm gonna mention one little information item before we do that. because Bruce Schulte is still here. The work of the strategic planning committee, the 5-year committee is ongoing and Bruce has been heading that up and I think it's good for the board to know that there is a group on campus that is diligently bringing ideas forward as to how we can revamp our 10-year strategic plan in midstream. And a lot of that is in preparation for our SACS reaccreditation, which looms large in 2025, I believe. So anyway, Bruce, thanks for being here. We have other information items and our athletic director, Todd Stewart, is with us today. I hope ready to give us a progress report on our academics in the athletic department.
Happy to. I didn't want to cut in front of Andrea. She was ahead of me on the sheet, so. But happy.
Well, she's
Happy.
not on my sheet.
That's all right. That's good. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and talk a little bit about the academic progress of our athletes. We do take the term student athlete literally and take it very seriously. So what I'll show you here in a second are the APR numbers that we have, not to get lost in the details, but just to explain how that is tabulated. So the easiest way to explain it is it's a team score. It's not an individual score, but each individual accrues points. And so each semester, there are 2 points on the line. 1, if you're eligible, and 2, if you remain in school. So over a normal year with 2 semesters, there's a possibility of getting 4 points. If you are eligible, but you drop out of school, you lose a point. If you're not eligible, but you stay in school, you lose a point. And the worst case scenario is if you're not eligible and you drop out of school, then you would lose either 2 points or even 3 points in some situations. If you are eligible and remain in school each semester and then ultimately graduate, then you would become a 4 for 4 every year that you're in the system. So that's a lot of numbers there, I know, but what it means is obviously there's a numerator and a denominator. A 4 for 4 is 1,000. 3 for 4 is 750, which is bad the way this is tabulated. A 2 for 4 is a 500, which is really bad. A 1 for 4 is a 250, which is terrible, and a 0 for 4 is awful. So it's a pretty good threshold in terms of measuring the academic progress of athletes. So what I would tell you is, before I go to the next slide, NCAA rules stipulate that a team's multi-year score, and that's a 4-year number. So you have, obviously, each year you get a score. Your multi-year score as a program has to be 930 or higher. If it's not, you are not eligible to participate in postseason tournaments. So a bowl game, NCAA tournament, any postseason tournament, you couldn't go if your score is below, if your multi-year score is below a 930. And then depending on how far below it is, you can also lose scholarships as well. So it's a meaningful metric, and obviously there's consequences if you don't meet it. But so what I'd like to point out here is if you look at the right-hand column first, that's the most recent year that was measured, which was last year, the 2021-2022 year, because we're still in the 2022-2023 year. And what I'm really proud of for our athletes and our coaches is if you look at those numbers, 11 of our 14 programs have a perfect 1,000 score. That's really extraordinary. And football, who has a 989, the number in parentheses is the number of athletes that are tabulated. Football has a 989, and for a sample size that large with the demographics as diverse as a football program, 989 is phenomenal. I mean, Tyson Hellman, his staff and our players, take this very seriously. The column on the left is what I referred to. That's the multi-year rate. So that's the average over a 4-year period. And again, you have to have a 930 or higher, and you see that all those are in really, really good position. Cross country, men's cross country would be the only one. And that's a tough one because there's a much smaller sample size there. And so in that instance, we had one student athlete who didn't do well and left school, who lost multiple points. And so when you're only dealing with a sample size of 15, there's very, very little margin for error there. But, I think the overall numbers, the multi-year rates are excellent, but trending even better because the right-hand column is really good. And then the number at the bottom, the student athlete graduation success rate, that is a similar but separate metric that the NCAA uses. And the way that's tabulated is for every student athlete, if they, from the minute they enroll in school, if they graduate within 6 years, or if they transfer to another school in good academic standing, or if somebody transfers in and graduates, then that's considered successful. And so 87% of our athletes meet that. Again, that's a very high number. And what I would just add to that is obviously they're true student athletes, but they're excellent in their sport as well. I mean, these are the numbers since we entered Conference USA. We've won 9 more championships than every other program. 9 different sport programs have contributed to this. And look, 9 of the schools in the league have 13 or less, basically almost a third of what we have. And what I would conclude with is not to get into a budget matter, but I just think you should know, and we've talked about this before, that this is the 14 schools that were on that last chart. We're 13th of the 14 in overall budget. Only 12 have a student fee. 2 of the schools don't do a student fee, but we're 11th of the 12 who have a student fee. So it's not about me in any way, shape, or form. It's about our coaches and our athletes, but you should just know how good our coaches are at managing the resources they have that they recruit true student athletes, and just how dedicated our athletes are to perform both in the classroom and on the field of play.
If I could add, there at a university, there are frequent questions around why athletics, what does it bring to the institution? And we talk about many things that athletics brings. Visibility brings student engagement, alumni engagement. But one of the things it does here particularly well at WKU is it gives young people an opportunity to go to college that otherwise might not. And from a variety of backgrounds, and the success that we create with those students is an exemplar for our university. That our graduation rate, not retention rate, is 87%. There is almost no other organization at this university that creates that kind of student success. There are resources obviously invested in it, tremendous supports that are created. But on the flip side, these are remarkable young people with talents inside and outside the classroom that are disciplined, that perform on a high level athletically and perform as students. And so for all of the things that it does, the thing that I'm most proud of is that our young people come, they compete, and most importantly, they graduate.
Pretty good. Any other comments or questions for Todd, Shane?
I'm curious about how was the NCAA studying on how difficult the impact on these rates from the new transfer rules, everything is good, how difficult it is to calculate what they expect to see over time, how it impacts student motivation, student athlete motivation.
Yeah, well, on a broad scale, that does concern me just because, as we all know, in many instances when somebody transfers, not all of their credits transfer with them. And in situations where you have athletes transferring multiple times, it decreases the likelihood of them graduating, certainly on time. So that is a concern. With respect to the APR, they have not redone any of that yet. That is still under the current guidelines. I think they may need to. I mean, it may be harder for everybody to keep these numbers. I mean, we all hear about the transfer portal, and we hope that it kind of stabilizes over time. It's still a relatively new entity. This is really about coming up will be the 3rd year of it. But the sad thing that happens there is you have a lot of athletes go in the portal naively thinking that there will automatically be a better outcome. And in some cases there are, but in some cases there aren't. And that's the worst situations when somebody, not here, I mean, anywhere in the country, when somebody actually has a situation that's probably better than what they think. Maybe they had the wrong people in their ear, or they just didn't stick it out a little bit longer, and they go in the portal, and then they don't end up having another opportunity. And so hopefully those instances become less as time goes on. But I think our coaches here again, they do a great job of just creating a very good culture within their program. And while we have athletes transfer out and while we have athletes transfer in, we have not had the overall number of transfers, and that hasn't impacted us like it has some others. I think just because our athletes, generally speaking, are very happy here.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions, comments for Todd? Great seeing those numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you. As all of us are no doubt aware, the Kentucky legislature has been active over the last few weeks. And Jennifer Smith is here today to update us on its impact on higher education.
Oh, it's good to be home. I've been in Frankfurt all week, so it's good to be here. I think most of you all are probably aware of this, but for anyone who is not, so the odd numbered years are short sessions, what we call short sessions. So it's 30 working days. Even numbered years, long sessions, those are 60 working days, and that's when they do pass the biennial budget. So this is not a budget year. You know, the messages that we were receiving before session started was it's going to be very condensed and there's not going to be a ton of bills filed. There's been 800 bills filed. So, so it's not quite, you know, gone the way we thought it would, but anyways, there's a lot going on up there. It's very busy. The session will be over on March 30th. There is a 10-day veto period built in there. So I think we have next week, 2 full weeks left, I believe, before they go into the veto period. So anything that's going to move has to start moving out of its chamber next week, or it's probably not going to have the opportunity to move through. So just wanted to give you just a very brief update on what the president and I have been doing together. He has been in Frankfurt with me now, I think 3 times this session, which is a lot more than I usually try to pull him up there during a short session. But we've done meetings with 4, has it been 4 times? Okay, 4 times. I block it out. I just block it out. So anyhow, we've had meetings on both the House and the Senate side. They've been great conversations. We've been sharing our story about our retention numbers and all the great work that we're doing here on campus. And so all those meetings I think have gone really, really well. And just going ahead and setting us up for the future and where we want to see things go for us in the future. Unfortunately, the president was supposed to have testified yesterday in front of the Budget Review Subcommittee on Post-Secondary Education. That meeting was canceled because the House Appropriations and Revenue is having a committee hearing at the same time, and you can't have both of those meetings happening at the same time. So we got pushed. So we're waiting to hear if we will have the opportunity to go ahead and do that testimony in these next couple of weeks. All of those meetings were already scheduled and planned for who would be presenting, so I'm not sure that we'll have that opportunity, which is a little disappointing because we had some really great news to share. So we'll see as that goes. There are a few bills in the House that are pertaining to KEYS scholarship. So that's the scholarship the high school students receive to use for in-state colleges and universities. There's also a dual credit bill that would be beneficial to all the universities. Those passed out of committee, out of the House committee, but then they've been reassigned to the House Appropriations and Revenue Committee. And what we're hearing is that anything to do with those scholarships and things like that are probably going to be pushed to next year when it's a budget session. So hopefully maybe we'll see some increased funding for those to help those students. And that also includes the mandatory FAFSA bill, if you all have heard about that. I don't that will probably be pushed to next session as well, if it will even ever be able to be passed. So just a couple things, House Bill 594 passed out of committee last night. That is the regulation of gaming machines. And so our concern with that was esports and all the universities that have robust esports programs. We just wanted to make sure that whatever they did with that was not going to affect our ability to have those esports. And even in committee testimony, it was, they carved out the games at Chuck E. Cheese, you know, like things like that, that you just don't realize when you start looking at that language, what all it can affect across the state. And so they did carve that out for us, for all universities. So it should not affect our esports programs at all. But that passed out of the House committee last night. It will head over to the Senate next week. And so I'll just keep an eye on that to make sure none of that changes and that we stay carved out of that. Let's see. So there is a Senate Joint Resolution 98 that was filed by President Robert Stivers. And what that does is it directs the Council on Post-Secondary Education to do a 25-year look back at higher education. And so from when House Bill 1 was passed in 98, 97, 98, was it 98? 98. I never can remember. And so it's just to do a look back, make sure that what we're doing in higher education in Kentucky is working, and is then that there doesn't need to be any kind of reform or any changes to our system. And so we will continue to monitor that and see how that goes. That did pass out of the Senate committee. So joint resolutions have to go through a committee. It's similar to a bill, except it doesn't go into statute, but it holds the same weight, so to speak, as if it was a piece of a regular bill that was filed. So that has passed out of the Senate Education Committee yesterday. And so I expect that to be over in the House next week as well. So we'll just keep an eye on that one too. And then probably the two most important resolutions that have been filed is Senate Resolution 114 confirming Regent Brody, and then Senate Resolution 115, which confirms Regent Dennison. And so those have both been filed by Senator Mike Wilson. And so we're very thankful for him doing that. I just want to say we are the first university to have any of our regents or board members to be introduced for confirmation. So I think that's a big win for us. That my colleagues were saying, how did you do that? And I was like, just emailed them and reminded them they needed to be confirmed. So anyhow, he's already filed those. And so usually those are not confirmed until like the last couple of days of session, when they're waiting on legislation to come between the two chambers. That's when they do a lot of those, what they call kind of housekeeping things. So don't panic if it's not happened by March 29th. It will happen March 29th or 30th at the latest. So the session will be over on the 30th. And so we will kind of see how everything lies when we get there. Y'all have any questions?
Question?
Any comments on that trans student bill that they're proposing?
So all of those pieces of legislation right now only affect K-12.
So that doesn't have any impact as far as we're concerned.
No, that's all on the K-12 level. It's all under 18 years old. Under 18. Yes. Yes.
Any other questions? Comments?
What's the mandatory FAFSA? What does that have to do with? I know the forms.
Sure.
Yeah.
So for several years now, there has been a bill introduced that would require high school seniors to fill out the FAFSA. The thinking of that some students may not realize that there is money out there. I don't know how much. Kentucky is probably in the top 10, is what I've been told by my counterpart at Kia and Keyslick, that Kentucky's in the top 10 of FAFSA completion in general. And so, but the other numbers that we hear is that there's millions of dollars left on the table from the federal government that students don't realize that they have access to. And so that's always been the push behind doing that?
So Louisiana has been very successful with mandatory FAFSA because if you recall, I've said on several occasions that our post-secondary education going rate has gone from 57% to 47% in the Commonwealth, with a declining number of seniors each year. The complexion of that class has shifted in such a way that it's more students who don't typically go to post-secondary education. So Louisiana has compelled every graduating senior to graduate to do the FAFSA. And what that's created is a tremendous leap year over year in college going. And so it's a way to address the challenge we have as a Commonwealth. There are some concerns, I think, around privacy and sharing of information in the federal government. As one of my colleagues has said, the federal government already has almost all of this information on you. It's all in your tax return. And so there's nothing to be paranoid about, but we live in an era where that's paranoia exists. So I think
Well, and also there is a piece in that piece of legislation, there's a section for a waiver. So if anyone remembers the first day of school or first couple days of school, all the papers that come home, the field trip, releases and all those kinds of things that we already have to fill out as parents, that there would also, the idea is that there would also be a waiver that comes home with that. So as you're filling out all these forms for school, you could fill out, no, I don't want my child to do the FAFSA, or yes, I do. So.
And I'll note this, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, but one of the benefits for students that want to help reduce their overall level of debt and take an employment position on campus is filling out that form. Because students are eligible for employment on campus once that form is completed. Are not eligible if they don't. So it's a benefit where they can reduce their level of debt and get good experience working on campus by filling out the federal student financial aid.
And if you think about the work that we're doing around access and affordability, that if you could get more students, and it's a difficult form, and you have to have access to your parents' financial information, and parents willing to cooperate in that. If we get more students to apply and know that they are actually Pell eligible, $1 in Pell Aid and a 3.0 means WKU will be tuition free for you. That will continue to increase access for all of us. I think that even if we don't get it through legislation, as an institution, we continue to press and with our good K-12 partners to move that forward and get as many people completing as possible. We go out to the community and do workshops and bring folks here and support them and do workshops. It's important policy work. It's also important life-changing work for young people who need to get access to that Hilltop Academy.
As the meeting progresses, my wife's keeping me advised of the weather. George, you're the only person at this meeting that isn't under tornado watch right now, apparently. So, as always, we're glad to have you here, and you may have to finish it yourself.
If I need to, I will. You all just be safe.
Related to that, we did ask all classes, which are on Friday afternoons, few and far between, but all classes from 11 o'clock on have been canceled. But we are asking the university community to essentially shelter in place, to stay in these well-constructed buildings that are probably safer than many of our homes if a storm were to come by. And there's a team of folks monitoring the weather, and if we need to find a safer space inside the building, they will get us there. But it looks like the most difficult storm will slide just to the north of Bowling Green. As you wonder why I've been coming and going, that's why I've been in and out a little bit.
A weatherman. All right. And we can segue into our mission statement review.
Absolutely.
Deals with this.
I welcome Beth Lovis back. You will recall we talked about reaffirmation of our accreditation last time, and this is an important part of that process. SACS requires the board on a regular or semi-regular basis to take a look at the mission and be reminded of what our mission statement is. And so Beth's going to walk us through that and help remind us all about WKU's mission.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me again today. This is for me, this is my job, right? All of this stack COT, but you've covered quite a few things in your agenda today that are related to our reaccreditation, and I appreciate all the work that you all do as part of this. So one of these things, I mean, the Board of Regents, of course, you all are of course critical to our university, and you are part of how we will report back to for our reaccreditation. And there's actually a whole section of the 79 standards that are part of. So there are of 79 standards, there's a whole section that's just related to the Board of Regents. Beth and I have been working on already, but part of that is related to the work that you do. We've been reviewing policies, and as you've done some of that today, and also many of our processes. Our writing teams have already started. I know we're a ways out. It's not due till September of 2024, but there's a lot to do. And so we've been working hard on that. Our next and our on-site visit, I wanted to remind you again, because some of you will be involved in that, is in February of 25. It sounds like it's a long way away, but to me, it feels like it's around the corner. So there are, so as part of this particular piece, and I appreciate your time, there are two specific standards in the principles of accreditation as part of our reaffirmation for FACT-COC. And the first one is standard 2.1, and it's just this is one of the core requirements of our accreditation, that we have a standard, and I mean that we have a mission, and that's the basic part of the mission. It addresses teaching and learning, and where applicable, research and public service. So having said that, now as we work towards making sure that we have everything covered, and not only covered, but documented, right? I mean, you guys all do this work all the time. We want to make sure that we have good documentation of all the things that we do today. So there is another standard, 4.2.A, that says the governing board ensures a regular review of our institution's mission. And so today I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about that mission and how it fits in our processes. You know, you talked about Bruce today, and Bruce and the strategic planning committee is looking forward. In this accreditation, we're looking backwards, right? We're looking at what we've done in the last 10 years. So having said that, it's a pretty simple thing that it says. And so so here's our mission, and I will with that background.
We're all familiar with this and the work that we do, but specifically the mission statement guides the entire institution. From that flows the strategic plan, flows the work of the faculty and staff, flows all of the work that we do to try to shape the university and elevate it. And so we prepare students of all backgrounds to be productive, engaged, socially responsible citizen leaders of a global society. We provide research, service, and lifelong learning opportunities for our students, faculty, and other constituents. And we enrich the quality of life for those within our reach. And so a broad mission where we think that every student, faculty, staff, alumnus, community member, donor, supporter can see themselves as an active participant. And it's just a nice reminder of what we do in a way that hits home every time I read it.
Make every word count.
Beth will duly record that the board has reviewed the mission statement as part of our reaffirmation process. There's a little bureaucracy that goes along with it.
Right. whenever Beth is here, I think of the work she did in getting Western Kentucky University to be one of the forerunners in the online world. And I'm glad you're still engaged and working hard for us.
I actually like this kind of work. So, it's been wonderful. I appreciate it. Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I do want to mention too, that every few years, the board goes through a little self-assessment process, and we're going to institute that again this next week. Going out, I guess Monday, there'll be an email going to all of us from an institutional research firm that will have some questions, comments that allow us to evaluate ourselves as board members. And then later in the year, we'll talk about that and review that. Hopefully, find ways to make us individually and as a board more effective at the jobs of being regents.
Board self-assessment is also part of the reaffirmation process, so we continue to work our way through.
Coincidence of that.
Yeah.
All right.
We ready? I move that the board go into closed session as provided by KRS 61.810, parentheses 1, parentheses closed, for the following discussions of proposed or pending litigation against or on behalf of the university.
For those who may be departing, keep your eye on the weather, no kidding. And be careful wherever